The youngest and prettiest but cruelest lady, Irma Grese, was one of the most notorious of the female Nazi war criminals, and was one of the relatively small number of women who had worked in the concentration camps that were hanged for war crimes by the Allies. She became the youngest woman executed under British jurisdiction in the 20th century, and was also the youngest of the concentration camp guards to be hanged. Like many other young people, she was swayed by Hitler's oratory and shocked by the corruption of the Weimar Republic government. She joined a Nazi youth group and wholeheartedly embraced their ideas. She was a volunteer concentration camp guard and had not been forced to work there. At age 19, she found herself a supervisor at Ravensbrück, which was used as a training camp for many female SS guards, just at the time the Nazi anti-Jewish programs were at their height in July 1942. In March 1943, she was transferred to Auschwitz. She later did a further spell at Ravensbrück and then went to Bergen-Belsen in March 1945. Irma rose to the rank of senior SS supervisor in the autumn of 1943 in day-to-day control of around 30,000 women prisoners, mainly Polish and Hungarian Jews. She was the second most senior female guard there. Through this occupation, she earned her notorious reputation, becoming both feared and hated within the Nazi camp. While in position, she was known for the arbitrary shooting of prisoners, the savaging of prisoners by her trained and half-starved dogs, the selection of prisoners for the gas chambers, and her sexual pleasure at these acts of cruelty. She habitually wore heavy boots and carried a whip and a pistol. She was using both physical and emotional methods to torture the camp's inmates and seemed to enjoy shooting prisoners in cold blood. She beat some of the women to death and whipped others mercilessly using a plaited cellophane whip. Survivors reported that she seemed to derive great sexual pleasure from these acts of sadism. Many of the women developed infections in their breasts from injuries caused by the braided wire end of her cellophane whips. She ordered to operate on these women with an unsterilized knife, with no anesthesia available for these operations. The woman screamed in agony. She was enjoying the sight of this human suffering. Her tense body swung back and forth in a revealing, rhythmical motion. Her cheeks were flushed, and her wide-open eyes had the rigid, staring look of complete sexual paroxysm. She did this on multiple occasions so she could relive this sadistic moment repeatedly. She always came to watch the operations of these women whose breasts had been slashed open and had become infected with the lice and dirt which pervaded the women's camp. She invariably arrived to watch the operation, kicking the victim if her screams interfered with her pleasure, and giving herself completely to the orgasmic spasms which shook her entire body and made saliva run down from the corner of her mouth. Greece also employed 1 or 2 huge dogs as part of her brutal reign in the Birkenau women's camp. She was riding around camp on a bicycle with a dog at her side, accompanying the female inmates on their 16-kilometer trek to work. If they couldn't keep up with the column, she ordered her dog to attack them without mercy. Once a survivor narrated, "We were loading the lorries. Before noon we had an unexpected visitor. We were very careful not to attract her attention. We pushed and pushed. It seemed to take an eternity to roll the car over the hill. The next team was unable to coordinate its efforts. They were completely unnerved by our visitor. They hesitated and lost control of their wagon. It swayed, bowled down the hill, and capsized, scattering stone over the whole area. The prisoners were completely broken in spirit. Irma sicked the 2 police dogs on them. The girls tried to escape their fangs, but the trained killers easily overtook them. One grabbed a Polish woman who slipped on a rock. The other fell upon a Russian girl. At Irma's orders, the capos' underlings beat and kicked the girls still untouched by the dogs. The capo, an inmate overseer, wrote down the numbers of the delinquent team. The dogs were tearing at the girls' bodies. Irma came closer to observe what they were doing. Her eyes were bloodshot. The sight of the blood seemed to intoxicate her. She panted. She was sexually excited. Everybody could see that. We stood in a trance, as at a gladiatorial combat. Among Irma's other notorious exploits at Auschwitz-Birkenau was tying the legs together of a woman about to give birth and watching her agony. One day, some attempted to escape and were noticed by Grese. She beat the majority with her hands and kicked them with her boots. Per various recollections of survivors, She is said to have killed at least 30 people per day. Grese had numerous affairs with female inmates. She had a good affair with a female prisoner block leader who was her favorite. Irma later grew bored with her and sent her to be killed. Grese was known to make prisoners kneel for long periods of time. Prisoners also had to hold heavy rocks over their heads during long roll calls. They were also often forced to stand for hours in snow, ice, and rain from 3 a.m. to 9 a.m. If someone did not stand up straight, she would beat the prisoner with a rubber truncheon until the prisoner was unconscious. She is also known to have knocked together the heads of two sisters upon the eve of liberation when she caught them trying to eat potato peel scraps by the camp kitchen. She set this trap herself in order to catch someone hungry enough to dare try to eat the potato peels. Grese was arrested on April 17th after British legal teams entered Belsen. On November 17th, 1945, Grese was found guilty and sentenced to death by hanging. The hangings were to take place in the Hameln jail in Westphalia. Her hanging was planned for Thursday morning, December 13th, 1945. The execution took place at 9:34 a.m. At 9:34 a.m., she walked into the execution chamber, gazed for a moment at the officials standing round it, then walked on to the center of the trap. The drop crashed down. After 20 minutes, the body was taken down and placed in a coffin, ready for burial.